Most NFL franchises burn $30 million a year desperately chasing elite edge rushers, but Chicago just quietly triggered a salary cap cheat code that shifts the entire balance of power. By forcing the Bears to bet the future of this defense on explosive rookie contract rusher Austin Booker, Ryan Poles isn't rolling the dice, he is executing a lethal Moneyball masterclass. If Booker hits 8 to 10 sacks on a cheap fourth-round salary, Chicago unlocks tens of millions in surplus cap space to build an unstoppable juggernaut roster. But if this ultra-aggressive roster gamble fails, the front office's entire championship window threatens to slam shut before it even officially begins. Here is the hidden strategic calculus behind Chicago's high-stakes gamble and why Austin Booker holds the key to the NFL's next dominant franchise. Modern NFL roster construction is no longer just a battle of raw physical talent. It is an unforgiving game of high-stakes financial chess, where every dollar allocated creates a cascade of strategic consequences. For decades, front offices evaluated players through traditional scouting lenses: 40-yard dash times, arm lengths, bench press reps, and tape evaluation. While those physical metrics remain critical, the introduction of advanced analytics and strict hard cap economics has forced a paradigm shift across the league. Winning in the modern era requires a relentless hunt for surplus value, which represents the positive difference between a player's actual production on the field and their specific impact against the salary cap. When a franchise acquires an elite player on a top-tier veteran contract, they are paying fair market value, which means their surplus value is effectively zero regardless of how well that player performs. The real competitive advantage, the elusive secret ingredient that transforms decent teams into sustained championship dynasties, lies in securing elite, high-value position output while paying a fraction of market rates. This financial dynamic becomes extraordinarily magnified at premium positions like quarterback, offensive tackle, cornerback, and edge rusher, where market forces have driven average annual values into astronomical territory. In a league where elite pass rushers routinely command contracts that consume upwards of 12 to 15% of a team's total salary cap, relying entirely on free agency or lucrative trade and extend deals acts as a slow-acting poison on overall roster depth. Every massive contract awarded to an established pass rusher directly deprives the front office of the financial flexibility required to retain homegrown talent, upgrade the offensive line, or build a deep, versatile secondary capable of surviving the grind of a 17-game season. A front office that gets trapped in the cycle of paying top dollar for every critical position eventually finds itself top-heavy, brittle, and incapable of absorbing injuries to key personnel. Enter Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears front office, who have quietly authored a modern Moneyball masterclass by re-engineering how they value edge rusher production. Rather than falling into the familiar trap of overpaying aging free agents or surrendering draft capital for expensive veterans, Chicago recognized a structural inefficiency in how pass rush value can be generated. By identifying Austin Booker as a player whose physical traits, motor, and developmental trajectory vastly exceeded his draft position, the front office positioned themselves to exploit a massive market discrepancy. Booker's entry-level contract represents an absolute fraction of what a comparable veteran pass rusher earns per season, creating a massive financial cushion that allows the front office to operate with total aggression elsewhere on the board. Trusting a young, developing pass rusher with such a critical role in the defense is not merely a tactical decision made on the field. It is a foundational financial strategy that dictates the long-term health of the entire organization. When a general manager purposefully leaves a premium position open for a young player on a rookie deal, they are making a conscious bet on their talent, evaluation, and coaching staff over the quick fix of the free agent market. It requires incredible discipline to resist the temptation of high-profile veteran signings, especially in a market hungry for immediate results. However, the teams that successfully execute this strategy gain a massive structural advantage, using the savings from cheap elite production to fund every other area of the roster and create a sustainable model for long-term dominance. To fully appreciate the genius of Chicago's strategic bet on Austin Booker, one must first confront the eye-watering financial realities of the modern NFL free agent market. Securing a proven upper echelon edge rusher in today's league is an extraordinarily expensive endeavor that forces front offices into massive structural compromises. The market rate for top-tier pass-rushing talent has blown past previous benchmarks, with elite veterans commanding average annual values anywhere from $25 million to well over $35 million per season. When a franchise decides to solve its pass rush deficiencies through high-priced free agency or blockbuster trade and extend scenarios, they aren't just signing a player, they are tethering a massive portion of their salary cap to a single individual. These heavy financial commitments come loaded with colossal signing bonuses, extensive fully guaranteed baselines, and dead money liabilities that can cripple a franchise's flexibility for 3 to 5 years. When a front office writes that giant check to an established veteran, the downstream mathematical consequences are immediate and unforgiving. Every dollar allocated toward a $30 million edge rusher is a dollar that cannot be used to lock up internal talent, solidify offensive line depth, or bolster the defensive secondary. It forces a team to rely heavily on minimum-level veterans and unproven late-round picks across other critical positions, creating glaring single-point-of-failure vulnerabilities across the roster. Furthermore, the veteran market carries immense intrinsic risk. Paying top dollar for a player in their late 20s or early 30s means paying for past production while taking on the steep downside of physical decline, nagging injuries, and potential scheme mismatches. The margin for error on these mega contracts is virtually non-existent, where a single major injury to a highly compensated star can tank an entire season while constraining cap mobility for years to come. This is precisely where the financial contrast between a high-cost veteran alternative and Austin Booker becomes a game-changing tactical advantage for Chicago. While blue-chip pass rushers absorb massive percentages of their team's overall cap sheet, Booker is locked into a 4-year rookie contract that costs the Bears a mere pittance by comparison. The total value of Booker's entire multi-year rookie deal represents a tiny fraction of what a high-end veteran demands in just a single season. By developing Booker internally rather than diving into the exorbitant free agent waters or surrendering premium draft picks in trade negotiations, Chicago effectively saves between $20 and $30 million in cap space annually. That staggering price differential represents pure, actionable surplus value, the ultimate currency in modern executive roster building. By bypassing the high-cost free agent market, Ryan Poles preserves the financial ammunition necessary to build a balanced, resilient, and deeply talented football team. Instead of sinking vast fortunes into a single defensive end, Chicago retains the financial flexibility required to extend its own homegrown core, guaranteeing that foundational talent remains anchored in navy and orange for years to come. The cap space saved by trusting Booker allows the front office to proactively secure premier offensive tackles, retain elite defensive backs, and maintain top-tier depth across the entire depth chart. Rather than operating from a place of financial desperation, Chicago transforms its cap structure into an offensive weapon, leaving them poised to pounce on opportunistic trades or key extensions whenever the market presents a discount. The high-cost alternative offers the illusion of an immediate quick fix, but Chicago's disciplined refusal to overpay on the open market lays the groundwork for a long-term, sustainable championship window. When you break down the mathematical reality of Chicago's roster design, the sheer financial efficiency of Austin Booker's contract emerges as the ultimate force multiplier. In modern sports analytics, few metrics are as telling as cost per sack, a ruthless equation that measures a pass rusher's actual cash hit against their total disruptive impact on the field. For established multi-million-dollar veterans, each sack carries an astronomical price tag, often costing front offices anywhere from $2 to $3 million in base salary and pro-rated bonuses. Conversely, Booker's entire annual salary barely hits seven figures, meaning that every quarterback hit, tackle for loss, and sack he registers yields an unprecedented return on investment. If Booker delivers an 8 to 10 sack campaign on his current rookie deal, he will provide the Chicago defense with elite-level pass rush output at roughly 5 to 10% of market cost. That staggering economic asymmetry is not just a nice bonus. It is a transformative structural advantage that systematically unlocks hyper-aggressive roster building across every other unit on the team. The true genius of this production per dollar dynamic lies in how surplus cap space cascades across the rest of the depth chart. Every $1 million saved at the edge rusher position directly translates into capital that can be deployed to solidify secondary coverage, shore up the interior offensive line, or secure game-changing skill positions. In the modern NFL, elite pass protection and high-end coverage are non-negotiable requirements for deep playoff runs. By anchoring one edge spot with a low-cost, high-upside player like Booker, Ryan Poles creates the precise cap flexibility required to extend cornerstone stars and absorb top-tier secondary contracts without jeopardizing the franchise's long-term financial health. It transforms Chicago's cap sheet from a rigid constraint into a dynamic tactical weapon, allowing the front office to aggressively build an elite, well-rounded roster while rivals are forced to gut their depth just to satisfy one or two massive veteran contracts. Ultimately, Booker's cost efficiency is the catalyst that elevates Chicago's entire defensive scheme under Eberfluss's system. When a team gets high-level pressure from a cheap fourth-round draft pick, they no longer need to execute risky high-variance blitz schemes to harass opposing quarterbacks. An organic four-man rush driven by elite, low-cost talent allows the defense to drop 7 defenders into coverage, suffocating passing lanes and creating a lethal environment for takeaways. This creates a compounding effect. Cheap front four disruption empowers the secondary, which leads to longer field position drives for the offense, which in turn forces opponents into predictable passing scripts where edge rushers thrive. Austin Booker's production per dollar isn't merely an exercise in clever accounting. It is the foundational engine powering Chicago's path to sustainable championship-caliber dominance. Yet, for all the breathtaking financial logic on a balance sheet, betting on a young, raw pass rusher over an established veteran carries immense operational risk. In the high-stakes world of the NFL, executing a Moneyball strategy isn't a purely mathematical exercise conducted in a vacuum. It requires radical organizational alignment and unwavering courage from the coaching staff. Sidelining or bypassing high-cost battle-tested veterans in favor of a fourth-round pick demands total belief in the player's physical traits, motor, and mental fortitude. Front offices can stare at surplus value analytics all day, but when Sunday arrives, it is the coaching staff that must live with the immediate consequences on the field. If that young player falters, misreads an option, or gets overpowered in critical late-game scenarios, the backlash falls squarely on the leadership team that dared to trust potential over experience. This strategic gamble requires Chicago's coaching staff to see Austin Booker not as a lottery ticket, but as an indispensable foundational pillar. Developing an edge rusher internally requires deliberate design, crafting customized pass rush packages, enduring early developmental mistakes, and steadily increasing their snap count against elite offensive tackles. The decision to forego expensive free agent band-aids means the coaches must actively cultivate Booker's raw athleticism and turn it into consistent, game-disrupting force. It is a high-wire act where practice field execution, film room discipline, and strength and conditioning progress must align perfectly with the front office's multi-year salary cap strategy. That is precisely why this strategic gamble represents a profound statement of confidence from Halas Hall. By placing the future of their pass rush on Booker's shoulders, Chicago is asserting that their talent evaluation and player development pipelines are strong enough to outpace the traditional free agent market. Rather than viewing Booker's age and contract status as a temporary placeholder, the organization views his explosive growth curve as a competitive edge. It is a calculated risk that bridges the gap between front office financial planning and on-field execution, a gamble that, if successful, proves Chicago possesses both the executive vision and the coaching environment needed to build a sustainable NFL power. When you step back to analyze the entirety of Ryan Pohl's vision, this deliberate bet on Austin Booker ceases to look like a localized coaching preference and reveals itself as the master key to Chicago's entire long-term roster construction model. Modern championship windows do not open purely because a team hits on a franchise quarterback. They open and, more importantly, remain open when the front office builds a sustainable ecosystem of value around that quarterback. By pairing a high upside passer on a controlled rookie contract with the elite caliber edge rusher on a 4-year, $4 million deal, Chicago achieves the holy grail of modern NFL financial engineering: maximum tactical firepower paired with total cap flexibility. The surplus value generated by Booker's contract acts as a protective shield around the team's balance sheet, preventing the salary cap compression that routinely dismantles contenders after one or two playoff runs. This is precisely how sustainable dynasties are engineered in an era designed to enforce parity. By using the tens of millions saved on Booker's bargain deal, Chicago can continuously fund high-end extensions for core building blocks across the offensive line, linebacking core, and secondary without ever falling into salary cap purgatory. The blueprint relies on a self-replenishing cycle. Identify undervalued, highly athletic traits in the middle rounds of the draft. Trust the coaching staff to refine those traits into premium position production and use the resulting financial surplus to maintain unmatched roster depth. Rather than operating as a desperate buyer at the trade deadline or overpaying veteran pass rushers whose best years are behind them, Chicago flips the table on the rest of the league by turning internal player development into its primary engine for salary cap flexibility. Austin Booker's breakout isn't just an exciting narrative for the defense, it is the ultimate validation of a front office operating miles ahead of the curve. By refusing to follow the league's conventional, expensive playbooks for acquiring pass rush production, the Bears have unlocked a formidable competitive advantage that will reverberate through the NFC for years to come. This master plan transforms Chicago from a team chasing fleeting playoff spots into a hyper-efficient, long-term juggernaut constructed to contend for championships year in and year out. The blueprint is set, the financial flexibility is secured, and as Austin Booker proves his worth on the field, Chicago's master plan is officially unlocked for the world to see.